Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. I give you a common message that I want you to hear, that I want you to understand fully. God, Spirit, the creative source, whatever you wish to call it, that which created you and all that is, knows what's happening right here, where you sit as you listen. I've said this before as well, that we are in a multi-dimensional place, and it's very difficult for you to understand that this message that I give now, even when it is listened to later, has the same effect. We know who you are, and in all beautiful love, we care about you. Wherever you are, wherever you sit, whatever has happened in your life is known by all those angels, if you wish to call it that, who surround you. As you sit there, I want you to understand that no matter what you have been told about who God might be, it is a caring, loving, beautiful, kind Creator that has put you here. There are so many right now who are saying, what is happening on the earth? This feels so different. And because of the difference, so many are in fear. Sometimes there's really nothing to fear, but you're in fear anyway. And the reason is because it's different. Humans love sameness. They don't like change that much, unless they are planning it or in control of it or expect it. So sometimes there is fear simply because you don't know what's coming. Dear ones, for 31 years, I have been telling you about change. In 1993, the first book that was released told you about now. It told you that you would not then have a termination of humanity on or about the year 2000 or even after 2000. That the scripture that you have come to know and study said otherwise. And we told you this is changed. This is something you changed. The future has changed. It is changed. And that is what the message of that book was, called The End Times. A funny title, some would say. A fearful doom title, some would say. But it's a metaphor. It's the end of an old time. The book title reflects that of the message of the Maya calendar. And so many of the indigenous of this planet who saw that something was coming. For thousands of years, looking into the skies, they realized there was an earth wobble of about 26,000 years. And the indigenous and the ancients, who were often guided by the stars and the positions of them, the equinoxes and all of these things, saw something coming. It would be when that wobble of the earth would center itself and start a new wobble. And that became then the marker. And you might notice that in your scriptures, for all of these years, you have seen that the earth wouldn't make it. There would be so much. The World War III, the Armageddon, whatever you wanted to call it, was prophesied everywhere. You really weren't expected to make it. But you did. I arrived in 1989 with a grand message. And the message was that there would be no Armageddon. The End Times book stated this clearly. Something else was going to happen. Dear ones, you're sitting right now in that something else. You moved past that which was the prediction of the end. And here you are sitting at a time that has really no predictions. Did you think of that? Whether it's your scripture, whether it's Nostradamus, whether it's the esoterics, there are no ancient predictions that bring you to this place. Oh, there are plenty of current ones. And the current ones are still often doom and gloom. Just lately, you've been given information, if it's not frightening enough, about things to happen in the next few months. And the astrology, it actually would confirm issues that you are going through if you looked at it. Never in your life have there been most of the planets in retrograde. Did you think of that? Interesting times, isn't it, that you are living in? I had a name for it, and I want to revisit that in this message. The name I gave for it just recently, right now, is the winter of consciousness. Let me tell you how this is working so you'll feel better about the fact that you are on target, on schedule. I told you there would be changes. 31 years. The messages have wound up to this place. Some have been cryptic, some metaphoric. But I told you that, dear ones, there is change coming. And I also told you that if you wanted to know more about what that change really truly was, you might see the predictions of the ancients who said, if you made it past that precession of equinox, if you made it, it would be the beginning of the highest consciousness the planet had ever had. With high consciousness, you have the end of war. You don't have the end of disagreements, dear one, because humans have free choice. You have the end of war, the kind that would terminate humanity. Now, some have said, well, that's impossible. The impossibility is that human nature will always drive you to the same place. I have news for you. Contrary to anything you've ever studied or heard or been taught, human nature is a moving target. Human nature starts to change with a higher consciousness maturity. What's been happening on your planet that you would said you never thought would happen? Not the pandemic. I'm talking about things that were different. Perhaps good news that you never thought would happen. For hundreds of years, there has been an inequality with the genders. So much so that one gender would be over another, and the other gender, the women, could do nothing about it. It wasn't just hundreds of years, perhaps it was human nature for thousands of years. And suddenly that changed with what you call the Me Too movement. Now, dear ones, think about it. That is a maturing of human nature and consciousness. That's when a confluence happens. That is a majority, if you wish, an intermingling of a higher idea that starts to take hold and starts to work. You've had some of the clergy for hundreds of years been responsible for abhorrent things with children and got away with it. And now you have even the leader of the clergy making differences. We predicted that leader. We predicted that leader would make those changes. That's the first time in hundreds of years that you're starting to see dark things come out into the open and be settled. You are right now in a place where other things are coming to the surface. I speak now to those of my partner's citizenship in America. It's time for change, and you know it. It's not that which happened in the past where the change would happen but really wouldn't. Meaning that it would rear its head again, and there would be demonstrations, and there would be those who were distraught in the horror of what happens and inequalities. And then they would go away, and then they'd recur, and then they'd go away, and then they'd recur. But now, dear ones, it's just like these other things I'm telling you. The reason you see so much unrest right now in this country is that finally they're looking for a solution. And they're not going to let it go unless there's a solution. This is different. This is a change. This is what we've been talking about, and here it is. Some interpret this as the worst thing that could happen, and you say, look at the unrest and look at all of this and what's happening. What's happening is maturity. What's happening is growing up. What's happening is that the old ways are not going to work anymore. The winter of consciousness is a description, a metaphor of the seasons. You are at the winter where the leaves are falling off the trees and it's becoming bitter cold and you don't know what's next. What follows winter, dear ones? You know. The sun will come out. The trees will have leaves again. That is a metaphor for things that start to be solved. Nothing happens quickly here. You know that. Nothing. But at least the seeds can be planted and grow that start solutions. And Americans will start a process of not electing anyone unless they are on board with the solutions. Do you see how this may be different? Do you see? If you are one watching this and not an American, you may look here and see so much unrest and say, what is going on with your country? I just gave it to you. And this country is not alone. There are some things happening on the planet, not as much in this country, that are also going to be exposed soon. The slavery of young women who are taken from their families and sometimes birthed in places just to be of service to men. Slavery. Dear ones, it's rampant. There are thousands. And it's all underground, you might say. It's always been there. Suddenly, it's going to rear its head. I want you to see how it's being funded. Then I want you to take a breath. You won't believe it. And it's going to come forth. All part of a new human nature. This is the message of Kryon. If you want to say, what is the overall message? It's always been this. You'd reach a time when you'd start to grow up. Grow up in maturity, in consciousness, so you would never kill one another in mass in a war. Unconscionable is the word. A higher consciousness that starts to make sense on the planet where you start to get along. And that your leaders, they won't last long unless they echo what the old souls of this planet are going to demand. Solutions or the beginning of them. Progress, finally. That's what's going on. Can you sit and celebrate it in the pandemic when you're experiencing, in some places, a reboot of the way things are? The new normal. A word that I've used now for some years is here. The new human, which I've used for years, is here. That's what's going on right now. Do you have the courage to celebrate it wherever you sit, no matter what's going on in your life? Can you sit and be peaceful for a moment? Can you sit and be healed of fear and anxiety for a moment? Can you sit and realize how much you're loved for a moment? A spotlight comes on you and you realize the angels are here and they're looking. And there's so much love. You will get through all of this, old soul. One of the reasons you're here, to hear some of the things that may help. I'm Kryon in love with humanity. And this is the message, and always will be, for a new human on a new planet called Earth. And so it is.